Jasmine Lomax is the Manager of Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility for the Kilroy Realty Corporation. Jasmine spends most of her free time as a youth, spent, sorry, Jasmine spent most of her free time as a youth volunteering with organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, and she is achieving her dreams to bring sustainable, environmentally friendly practices to the built environment. Her degree is from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in construction management with dual minors in real property development and city and regional planning. She's also a lead. What's your lead credential? There's a bunch of them. Your lead GA.
GA.
Yes, a lead GA and a CGP. And I don't know what
Okay,
a
there we go.
CGP stands for.
It's a green certified green professional. It's one of those. We have a background in construction from Cal Poly, as Sean said in my intro, and I ended up on the developer side because while I was on these construction sites, I was like, why aren't these being done more sustainably? But obviously it's too late when the project's already being built. So that's when I started taking an interest in like the owner and developer side where a lot of decisions are made as far as like the sustainability practices that will be on the job site and the design and everything like that. So that's sort of where my interest peaked. And then currently, I've been working on tracking our Scope 3 emissions at Kilroy, which includes embodied carbon of our new development and embodied carbon of existing buildings, but we're focusing on new development. So, yeah, that's sort of my area of emerging expertise as far as, go ahead.
And your slides are up now. We're looking at
Thank
the
you.
future of electrification. All right, we're on track.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. So, yeah, so let me segue into my presentation. So I was going to wrap up with the rest of my intro in that carbon emissions for buildings, there's operational carbon and then also embodied carbon. So that's been a lot of my focus in the decarb world, but we're going to focus on the future of electrification in the operational carbon realm. And it's a little bit different take. I know some of the presentations today, they've been really amazing. And as far as building electrification, have focused a lot on like specific trends and sort of legislation that is accompanying that. Next slide. So my approach is going to be more about tools that we can use to implement. So why electrification? We know it is the most inexpensive way to decarbonize the building sector. It is an abundant resource and it will allow us to optimize our grid management. And we have better technology and are able to communicate through an electrified grid. And then obviously we need to work on decarbonizing buildings, and we will do it through electrification. Next slide. So in LA specifically, we do have a goal, of course, to have 100% renewable electricity by 2045, which is just around the corner, and we'll be here in no time. And then for buildings to be net zero carbon by 2050. Next slide. So again, like I said, how will we be able to reach these goals? Will be through decarbonizing buildings, through electrifying our grid, and electrifying building end uses. So it's like your heating and cooling, and reducing our energy demand. There's other options such as renewable natural gas, which isn't actually renewable. It's not cost effective, and we wouldn't end up meeting our goals. So in the crush to achieve our sustainability goals, we have to be leery of like actual progress and like energy electrification applications that are actually sustainable. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is where I sort of get into more about technologies around building electrification and what's actually being used. And since our buildings just account for so much energy use and greenhouse gas emissions, it's important to be accompanying progress with also technological advances. So we'll cover heating, cooling, space heating, and water heating, and then cooking, which has always been a challenge, especially in commercial building. We sort of butt heads with the culinary industry and the argument that it just won't be the same and things won't taste the same. And then also drying and laundry, which isn't as commonly thought of, but is still, we have laundry mats and such, and multifamily housing that will use laundry and drying. Okay, next. Okay, so like I said, we'll be looking into end use electrification and the types of technologies that are out there and where we're at. Next slide. Starting with space heating. So we're kind of lucky to be living in California where climates have been more moderate. Obviously, with climate change, it's really hard to tell what's actually happening with our weather. It hasn't been too hot here down in LA. And as you can see, in the commercial building sector in Southern California, slightly less fossil fuels are used than in Northern California. But space heating electrification is not new technology, and it's pretty efficient compared to some standard electric space heating technologies, and also, of course, gas. Next slide. So a common and current technology are heat pumps. Like I said, we live in a moderate climate, so there hasn't been a lot of focus on adjusting heat pumps for our climates, but they tend to be less efficient in colder climates. And there's been some emerging technologies around that to make them much more effective and efficient. So yeah, heat pumps are a great option. They're a lot less expensive to operate, and especially compared to like gas furnaces and any sort of any type of renewable type gas can like triple in cost. So yeah, and we use them more here in Southern California than Northern California, but obviously, as we push to electrify the building sector, their use will become more common. Next slide. Unfortunately, heat pumps do use a vapor compression cycle, which we use refrigerants, which have a lot of negative impacts on the planet, high global warming potential. So there are emerging heat pump technologies trying to reduce those aspects of heat pump technology right now. So yeah, there's combination heat pumps, which you can use both for space heating and water heating. And most of the testing and like R&D has been done abroad, but it's more forthcoming and should be being used in the United States more frequently, hopefully. Next slide, please. Okay. Electric resistance heating technology. I won't linger on this too much because it's more common in residential buildings, but there's several types, and yeah, they're affordable, more affordable than some electric space heating technologies up front, but they aren't quite as efficient and can be expensive to operate just because of sometimes like the time that they're run in order to heat your space effectively or to your liking. Next. Okay, moving on to water heating. So we're going to look at tankless and heat pump for water heating. And next slide. Tankless is more popular in residential, but it can also be used in commercial buildings. There's it can be more expensive because of the need for distribution versus in a home. And also for larger buildings, um, the amount of energy that's required to heat the water instantaneously can come at a higher cost, and um, maybe not won't be so efficient on a larger building. But in residential, they are really popular. I have one, and there are tax incentives and rebates that are available. Next slide. And then heat pump water heaters is also an older technology, but it is going through some more recent, like research and development phase to be optimized. Um, and there's also, like I said, for space heating, they're working on different technologies that won't use refrigerants or have a lot lower global warming potential. But we really need to come up with a lot better technologies, and I know some of my colleagues at this conference have talked about some of those things. Okay, next. Okay, solar thermal, I feel like doesn't get kind of gets left behind a little bit. And it's, it can be effective for both residential and commercial. Um, it's less common in the commercial sector, but definitely a water heating technology that's really efficient and has really positive impact on the environment, since it can be a passive heating technology. And cooking, which is my personal favorite, and the fight to get more electric appliances in the kitchen for a number of reasons. I mean, just being around gas cooking appliances is hard on people's health, especially if you have compromised respiratory systems. So, and everything in the kitchen can be electrified, which is great. And you won't really notice that much of a difference in the food quality, but that can just remain up for debate. Next slide. So some of the most common technologies used for cooking electrification is induction. And like induction stovetops, they're pretty versatile. Um, and I know cooking is just like a very personal thing to like the culinary industry. So having a variety of options is important, and where we find a lot of like our sticking points to be with our customers. And then also countertop induction woks, which can be used in more like larger commercial kitchens, but are a little bit more popular for like light duty work, but is also a viable option. Next. And then again, like I was saying, most commercial or most cooking equipment can be electrified, and this can be one of our larger sticking points in the commercial building industry when trying to electrify portfolios. And so just knowing which options are available and the reality of those options and the benefits they provide could help sort of close that gap and that resistance. Retrofit retrofit for electrification can be a little bit more labor intensive, and sometimes you can even need a new electrical panel, and that goes for all electrification. But it's definitely worth the savings and the health benefits. Next slide. Okay, and then last, which I thought was interesting, is clothes drying and laundry, and how those items can be electrified. So commercial and multifamily building systems use a lot of energy when it comes to clothes drying and laundry, just because of the quantity and the loads are really heavy. And just the amount of energy that goes to trying to pull the moisture out of the clothing and actually like physically move it, the mechanics of that. And it can account for over 80% of energy used, of the energy used to do laundry goes to drying, washing and drying. Next slide, please. Okay, so clothes drying and laundry electrification, some technologies that we have. Well, standard electric heat resistance dryer, we're all familiar with that, and it's used in all building types, but it doesn't have a huge benefit as far as the amount of progress we need to make in reducing our carbon emissions. Heat pump dryers, we're back to heat pump technology. For washing and drying, it's not quite as efficient as other options, but is a good option, especially for in residential. And then a combination washer and dryer. They're small. They're usually not used here in the U.S. So we just have larger everything, but they do provide some level of sustainability, and mostly from taking on smaller loads of laundry, but also they're just built to a higher efficiency standard. And then next slide, please. So these two are newer. It might have got cut off at the bottom, but we'll still cover it. These two are a little bit newer technologies that are still in the research and development phase, but I did think they were interesting to discuss. So ultrasonic drying, it is slated to be, okay for all building types. And how the technology works is that electricity, there's a device inside the dryer that converts electricity into vibrations that evaporate the water out of clothing. And So there's no the drying process is way faster, and it takes the heat out of the drying process, which um, really helps with energy efficiency. And then this other one, CO2 laundry system, this is a technology that's emerging that could be used for larger scale, more industrial size um, industry, such as like dry cleaners. And it's uses liquid CO2, or what we know as dry ice, to displace water, and also eliminates the need for heating. The drying process for this system can take a little bit longer, but energy savings and GHG reductions are really high compared to our standard electrification means. Okay, next slide. So, in doing some research behind the future of electrification and thinking about where we're at right now, some takeaways are decarbonizing the building sector through electrification and other methods is really critical for us being able to survive these global warming impacts that have already started. But we're pretty much out of time, but we are running out of time. So also, I know through electrification, people and clients are often concerned about the upfront cost, but in the long run, it does save money. And as more technologies emerge, and new research and development emerges, costs can decrease for different electrification technologies. And as far as acquiring electricity from the grid, I know it depends on where you're located in those prices. But yeah, and then lastly, I just want to reiterate that not all these electrification technologies are perfect, and we have a lot of work to do, and refrigerants being part of that is a really big part of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else is forthcoming in the years to come, and seeing us meet our goals. I think that's it. I might have one last slide.
Oh, pardon me. You had that sort of like air of finality.
The future of electrification is bright, all the puns intended.
Nicely done. Thank you, Jasmine. I had a question. I haven't gotten a chance to go over to chats, but a question I had is, you are the sustainability manager at Kilroy. This is a large
Yes,
realty company. What is
yes.
Kilroy, how are they responding to the message that you're bringing to them in terms of electrifying either new construction or retrofits?
They're already there. We have
Wow.
3 electric buildings. Actually, one was displayed on one of my slides. It's called On Vine, and that was recently just opened, the Netflix campus. So Kilroy has always been a huge proponent of electrifying buildings and has taken huge steps. Yes, right there. That's the campus.
Beautiful.
Um, to work towards our portfolio goals, which then, of course, impact city goals and state and so on. So it's been really rewarding to be part of a team that's just so enthusiastic about this stuff and always looking for new ways, like new efficiency projects and electrification options. And yeah, we're always brainstorming about stuff.
That's awesome to hear. I one of the other things you surprised me with was that there was 40% of the commercial buildings down in the LA area or Southern California were using heat pumps now. I mean, that's what
Hmm.
most of the buildings are in California, in Southern California, that kind of
Right.
California. Um, So that's, oh man, it's much more widespread than I would have expected. Than I did expect.
Right.
That's great. Um, so Dr. Anthony Kinslow II is here to do his presentation. Is it all right if we
Okay.
transition any other thoughts you had over to the chat? You can correspond with folks.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah, I'll
you
hit
so
up the
much.
chat right now. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Really appreciate it.